We are 5 minutes to start time on YouTube. I've just launched everything on YouTube. So we're live on YouTube and we are live on Instagram. Hi, thank you for joining. Hello. Hi, everybody. Today is week 4. Today marks week 4 of the Ask A Canadian Immigrant live virtual tour. Today, we're stopping over in Atlantic Canada. I should have had a guest today who is in Atlantic Canada. However, if you are not aware of the news, Atlantic Canada did get a storm recently and he was affected by the storm. So I'm flying it solo today, which is fine. He's safe. That's good. That's what's most important. But today we're going to go over the Atlantic Immigration Program. We're going to talk a bit about Atlantic Canada and answer some of the questions that have come through to me regarding Atlantic Canada. Some really good questions. So, I mean, we are early. I'm 4 minutes to start time, which is 6 o'clock. I had to move the time to kind of readjust with my guest not being able to be here. But I overcame. I'm here and I'm ready for you. So bear with me here. While you are logging on, I do see a number of people joining. Hi, thanks for joining. Tell me where you are. Tell me how you're doing, where you're viewing from, and what it is that you're looking to get out of this live. This is about the Atlantic Immigration Program. If you're joining for the first time, this is week 4 of the Ask A Canadian Immigrant live virtual tour. I'm on Instagram right here and I'm on YouTube here and I have a screen here and I have a screen here. So if you see my head moving all over the place, that's why. Hi, person on YouTube, Quasi. You're really looking forward to this week. Me too. And I mean, we're still here, we're still going to talk about it. We're not going to get Gio's personal experience, but I trust that the stars will align at some point and we will hear from him directly about his experience in Atlantic Canada. So definitely still stay tuned. We're going to talk about Atlantic Canada and the Atlantic Immigration Program and answer the questions that we have on the people who RSVP'd. So let me know where you are, guys, on Instagram and on YouTube. Hello and hello. Hello. Hi, I see a lot of people saying hello. Hello. Where are you guys at? Where are you guys joining from? And we have 2 minutes till I actually start just talking about content and stuff. But while we're there, hopping in from Jamaica. Hi. Thanks for joining from Jamaica. Welcome from Jamaica again. Hello, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Oh, New Brunswick, right? Hi. You're in Atlantic Canada. How are you? How's the weather? Moncton, New Brunswick. So there's somebody here from Atlantic Canada. Welcome. Welcome. What's it like in Atlantic Canada? I'm thinking about going there for like a month, guys. You think that's a good idea? To pack my child up and everything and just go there and spend a week in each Atlantic province. That's legit. I'm thinking about doing that. I want to go and experience it for you guys, also for myself. I'm not trying to live out there. I'm not trying to move, but I would be interested in just going and seeing what it's like. Hi from BC. Hi from Nigeria. Hi from Ghana over on YouTube. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think I should go to Atlantic Canada for a month. Just go there and in each province, spend a week. Tell me if you think that's a good idea. I kind of feel like, I mean, it's not like one time when it was just me, right? I have to pack everybody up, my kid, everything. So it's different. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible. What do you think? What do you think? All right. Okay. So we are 6 o'clock on the dot and I'm going to start on time. So welcome back to my channel. If you are a subscriber, if you're not new here, thank you for sticking around. Welcome thanks for that thumbs up. Welcome. If you're new here, my name is Kristina. I'm the host of A Canadian Immigrant, and I'm your friendly Canadian immigrant who talks to you about Canadian immigration, what it's like about being in Canada, and helping you along the way. So I was supposed to have a guest today, Gio. Gio and I went to prep school together. So we've come from far, far, far. Gio is in Newfoundland, and he has had the Atlantic Canada experience, not through the Atlantic Immigration Program, but he went over there through school with his partner and his child, and he hasn't quite liked it the last time I checked in. He's unfortunately not able to be here with me today because he was affected by the storm that hit Atlantic Canada recently, and so he's not able to join. But I'm here today still to talk about the Atlantic Immigration Program. And this is week 4 of our Ask a Canadian Immigrant tour, week 4 of 5. And today we're going to cover, what is the Atlantic Immigration Program? Where is Atlantic Canada? How does the Atlantic Immigration Program work? I'm so tempted to say Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program because in 2019, that's what it was called. And I did a lot of videos about this program back in 2019, but the name has changed, and I'll go through why in just a sec. I'm going to talk about the designated list of employers, where to find jobs, and then I'm going to do a comparison between the Atlantic Immigration Program and the Labor Market Impact Assessment, which is also known as LMIA for short. And then I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of the program and the pros and cons of Atlantic Canada. So let's jump right into that. So first of all, Atlantic Immigration Program. So what is it? It is an immigration pathway that allows skilled foreign workers, so people who are skilled and live in another country, and international graduates who have gone to school in Atlantic Canada to move and live in or move to and work in one of the Atlantic provinces in Canada. So that's East Canada. The program itself is driven by employers, which means that employers have submitted interest or concern to the government to say, we need people to work for us, but there's nobody locally who is able to fill these job positions. And that will happen. And that's why Canada is even big on immigration, because in certain areas, but generally in Canada, the population is an aging population. So the labor force, so the workforce, the working age people, are getting smaller because they're moving closer and closer to retirement, and no new people are coming in to the labor market within Canada enough to satisfy all of the needs that are around and all of the employment gaps. So the employers in Atlantic Canada say, hey, we need more people, so help us to bring people here. And that was the birth of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. So the pilot program, it ran for 4 or 5 years. And it had an end date, right? So we said, run this program, come to Canada through this program, and by December 31st, 2021, that program will be closed. And so the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is closed. So since a pilot program, they did it as a test, I suppose, or they did it to see, proof of concept, it worked. And so they've made it a permanent program. And now it's called the Atlantic Immigration Program. So the word pilot is removed from the name. So that's kind of how that came across. So if you'll see somewhere where it's saying that the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is closed, that is true. But in true sense of the term, it's just been renamed and it's not the pilot program anymore. So that's basically what it is. It's come to Canada as a foreign worker or as an international graduate to Atlantic Canada. Employers have submitted interest to have people come and work for them. And so you who are interested in going to Atlantic Canada through this program would have to get a job offer from an employer on the designated list to say, here, I'm hiring you, come. So that is the what of the Atlantic Immigration Program. Now, where, of course, is Atlantic Canada? So Atlantic Canada is Eastern Canada. So, I mean, if you don't know north, south, east, or west, central Canada, it doesn't really matter, right? To you where Eastern Canada is, right? So before I get into East Canada, so just to break down, because before I moved to Canada, I didn't really have a true sense or understanding of what is a province versus a city versus a town. Like if you ask me to write my address, I kind of just write it and hope for the best. Right. That's before I moved to Canada. Once I moved here, I kind of had a better understanding of what provinces are and stuff, because I mean, I never had any reason to know before. So that language we don't use in my country, in Jamaica. Right. So I put this bit in my book as well, just to give you guys a rundown of what is a province for those who don't know. So I'm going to say it for the benefit of anybody who is unfamiliar with a province, what a province is and what Eastern provinces are. So a province, Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories, right? A province is kind of like a state, like a US state. So you know the states in the United States, you know New York and you know California. Everybody knows New York and everybody knows Florida as a state in the US, right? So a province is similar to that, but provinces are kind of bigger. But that's province is a language that Canada uses, right? So Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. A territory, they just call it different names because of different governance, but for the purposes of this, it doesn't matter. The differences between provinces and territories. So I'm going to tell you the 10 provinces. So there's Alberta. We went to Alberta the first week of our tour. There's British Columbia, which is Western Canada, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario. I live in Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and Saskatchewan. So those are the 10 Canadian provinces. So like in the United States, New York and California is a province, Ontario and Alberta are provinces, and in Jamaica, for my people, St. Anne and Kingston are parishes. So it's the same kind of thing, right? Now, within each province or within each parish or within each state, there's a city. So Toronto is a city in Ontario. So Toronto is not the province. LA is a city in California, and Ocho Rios is a city in St. Anne. So that's kind of just to break down, like, okay, what is a province for it to matter when I say it's Eastern Canada or it's the Eastern provinces in Canada. So when you apply to the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, you're trying to go to only 4 of these provinces, right? 4 of the 10. You can only go to 4 of the 10. And those 4 are, if this is a map of Canada, there's 4 over here on the east, all right? And like if you flip the camera. So the Eastern provinces are, I'm telling you where, we're doing where, right? New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador. So those are the 4 Atlantic provinces. So when you apply to this program, you can only go to those four provinces initially, right? So that's the where. Where is Atlantic Canada, Eastern Canada? So how does it work now? It starts out with the employer. The employer submits applications to the government saying, hey, I'm trying to hire a butcher where I'm not able to fill this position locally. I need to hire internationally, right? Then the province says, okay, sure. Submit your information to just show that you are a legitimate workplace. You know, you've been in business for more than a year or 2. And you meet the requirements that we have as a province for hiring people, employment standards or whatever, right? When they submit an interest, the province says, okay, yeah, you look like you really need this. Okay, fine. You are now called a designated employer. So you are designated to be able to hire people from outside of the country, right? Or people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents, right? Once they submit that interest, they get designated. Now they can post jobs and people from outside of the country can apply. I'm getting a phone call. Ha! Put your phone on. Sorry, I just got a phone call, guys. Put your phone on airplane mode, right? Oh my God. I soon call you back. Sorry about that, guys. I'm back. You can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if I'm still live on Instagram. I just got some phone calls coming in. So I'm going to continue. So the employers say, okay, now I'm designated, now I can hire internationally, now I can fill this labor shortage, right? Sorry guys. After that, no, the employers say, okay, I'm interested. Now comes the part where, okay, so who can apply is a skilled worker or a international graduate who has been to school in Atlantic Canada, right? So let's kind of break down what a foreign skilled worker is or a skilled foreign worker is, right? So for the purpose of this context of the Atlantic Immigration Program, foreign is any country outside of Canada. So that answers the question for anybody who has the question in their mind. Can I apply to this program if I live in Jamaica? Can I apply if I live in Nigeria? Can I apply if I live in Scotland? Foreign is any country outside of Canada. Yes? Okay. So, and then a skilled worker now. So it's you're to be eligible, you're a skilled foreign worker. So we cover the foreign part. A skilled worker now is somebody who has worked for at least a year, which is like 30 hours of 1 year, and calculated into like total number of hours is 1,560 hours within a 12-month period, right? Within the last 5 years. So if you've worked for at least 1 year within the last 5 years, that's, you checked one box on being eligible as a foreign skilled worker, right? The type of employment has to be, it can be full-time or part-time as long as you've accumulated the total number of hours that they need for a minimum of a year. So you could have accumulated those hours over like 2 years or 3 years, as long as it's continuous employment, right? And if you're like self-employed or have done like unpaid internship or volunteer positions, like those don't count towards like hours or eligibility. Okay. Now, the type of employment is extremely important because you have to like fit a certain category or classification within the government's definition of like a job title and the definition of your job, right? So these classifications are under what's called the National Occupational Classification, or NOC, right? And within that system, each job title has like a code, right? So if you're a butcher, there's a certain code for that. If you are a seamstress, if that's on there, I don't know, there's a code for that, right? So immigration uses this system and this list and this classification to be able to kind of assess or define job titles and duties, and then put them in classes based on level of skill needed, right? So like, say for instance, like a butcher wouldn't need the same level of education as a doctor, for example, right? So the type of employment as a skilled foreign worker would be something that falls within the category of 0, A, B, or C. Now, on the National Occupational Classification website, they'll break down what types of jobs fall under these categories. So under skill type O, 0, sorry, I said O, it's a 0, it's a number 0, are like managerial level jobs. So like a project manager, a restaurant manager, a human resource manager, a government manager, commissioned police officer, a construction manager. Those are the types of jobs that are skill type O, 0. Skill type A are professional jobs that you would usually have to get like a university degree to be qualified to do this job. So like a medical doctor or an architect, a financial auditor, or like a professional consultant of the sort, right? So that is the classification for type A. Type B are more technical jobs or skills trades jobs. So like a technical position, like an architectural technologist or a drafter. So if you do like drawings on your computer, an administrative assistant, an HR recruiter, a chef, electrician or a plumber, right? Electrician and plumber are more like trades related, but they were still like grouped under type B. And then type C now is intermediate jobs that you can qualify for with a high school education, right? Or like a specific kind of training, job specific training. So like a waitress, which is in the National Occupational Classification, is called a food and beverage server. Okay, get it right. A butcher, a receptionist, and a housekeeper. So those are the type of jobs that fall under classification C. So as long as you, one, have had 1 year worth of work experience, minimum, or 1,560 hours in one of these categories, so 0, A, B, or C, you've checked another box for being eligible for the Atlantic Immigration Program, right? As a skilled worker, like if you're applying for any of these jobs too, and the National Occupational Classification will also tell you that, you know, you have to meet certain educational requirements. So if you're at the C level, you have to show that you have completed high school education. If you're at the B level, that you have the trades certification or the technical certification to do whatever job. A level, you have to show that you have a bachelor's or a master's or a doctorate. And then the O level, similar bachelor's, master's, or doctorate, depending on your job position, right? So whatever your managerial level of work requires, then you have to show that educational credential, right? Now, one thing I want to point out about the NOC codes is don't be intimidated by this classification or the names that they are using as job titles. And I say this because sometimes you are working at a certain place and your job title is a CAD operator. And I'm going to use this example because this was exactly my experience when I was going through this, right? Say you're a CAD operator, or you call it, or a drafter, and that's what you're called at your company. That's the name of your job title, right? If you go into the National Occupational Classification website and type in CAD operator or drafter, nothing will come up. And it can probably incite a little bit of fear. Say, oh my God, I'm not qualified because my job doesn't come up. No, it's because they're just calling it another name, right? So if you find that your job title is not coming up on the NOC, try doing search, like probably just Google search, like job titles for a drafter, job titles for, and you'll see other ideas or examples come up, and then you put those examples in the NOC search to find out if you are actually eligible. So like a CAD operator is on the NOC code is called an architectural technologist, right? And so that was my experience when I was just started my journey in Canadian immigration, trying to find my NOC code and realizing that it's just called something else. And how you know it is that it is your job that they're talking about is you read the description. If the description of the duties of the position matches yours, because on the NOC, you'll see descriptions, you'll see main duties, you see educational requirements usually. It'll tell you that, you know, you do drawings on a computer, you do some drafting standards, whatever. You'll know that, okay, yeah, this is what I do. So this is my title, this is my NOC code. So find that code on the NOC website. Links to everything that I'm talking about is currently in a blog post that I just made that is available on my website. So at the end, I'll go through where to find that so that you don't have to like worry about where to find all these things I'm talking about. Okay, so once you have satisfied, you know, immigration, that, you know, I am a skilled foreign worker by way of all the things I just mentioned, now you need to find a job, right? You need to find a job that is being offered by one of the designated employers in Atlantic Canada, right? Part of your preparation too, you know, you find a job, that's one thing. Once you find a job, you have to get a settlement plan. So this is me talking about how it works, how the Atlantic Immigration Program works. If you've just joined, I just spoke about what it is, where is Atlantic Canada, and now I'm talking about how it works. So you satisfy the requirement for being deemed a skilled foreign worker. You find a job, you get the job offer from an employer. You get a settlement plan from settlement services. Settlement services are usually free. There are several organizations that provide settlement services. And the point of settlement services is to help you to integrate into your new home, right? Like you're in a new place. You need, there's new people. You need to know about the services that are available to you as an immigrant or even as a resident of that place. So settlement services helps to provide you with a plan. This plan is needed to be able to apply for the Atlantic Immigration Program, okay? And I like the idea of that because it helps you to bridge the gap between, like, you can't see, you don't even know where you're going, right? So settlement services will help. Hi from Kenya. However, settlement services don't help you with the job hunt, okay? So settlement services come in after you have your job. So, So now with your job offer, and you'll get something that's called a certificate of endorsement from the employer, and that the employer will do that part. And that certificate is really just to say the province approves you as a candidate and the job position and the two together, right? So you'll get that, you'll get your settlement plan, and then you apply for permanent residency with those documents. Now, the permanent residency application can take about a year to process, which is kind of like, if you think about like, okay, I just got a job offer and I have to wait for a year to start working. That's kind of crazy. So this is where now you have the option of applying to get a temporary work permit to work while you wait for your permanent resident application, right? So that's a big help, right? Because like as an employer, I'm not looking for somebody to start my job or my work a year from now. I'm trying to get them to start tomorrow, next week. So you apply for a work permit that is specific to that employer, which is a closed work permit. You get to go work. And then once your permanent resident application is approved, then you are a permanent resident. Processing time is about a year. So you could, like, from applying to this program, be a permanent resident within a year or a year and a half. Now, processing times can vary and they can change, especially given COVID. So always just check the processing times. But as of today, it's 12 months. So that is how it works for an foreign skilled worker. Now, the other stream is international graduates. So people who have graduated from an institution within Atlantic Canada. So it has to be a school within one of the Atlantic provinces. So they've graduated from that program. The program was full-time and for a minimum of 2 years to be able to qualify as under this stream, right? Through the Atlantic Immigration Program, right? So everything else for the international student is the same as the foreign worker, but there's just this kind of exception where they don't have to show work experience if they have been to school in Atlantic Canada. Well, why wouldn't they just go to express entry, right? We're going to get there. We're getting there. So that's how it works for the international student or the international graduate. That's less detailed because I think that's less relevant to my viewers. I think most people are outside of Canada trying to get to Canada. So that's the international graduate people, right? Now, another how it works is proof of funds. Now, this is a big deal for people, of course, for anybody. For any immigration program, it's showing that you have enough money to migrate to Canada, right? Because no matter what program it is, there is a requirement to show money in the bank, right? Now, the proof of funds for the Atlantic Immigration Program is significantly lower than express entry. Express entry for one person, the minimum, I haven't even looked it up recently, but when I know when I was doing it, it was 12,000. I think it's now between 13,000, 14,000. that you have to show as proof of funds for an individual, right? And that's 14,000 Canadian dollars. If I were to convert it to Jamaican, it's 1.5 million dollars, right? The Atlantic Immigration Program now is significantly less. Even if you're like have a family of 5, it's not even that much for 5 people, much less 1 person. So the Atlantic Immigration Program right now, if one person is going on the program, through the program, you have to show that you have at least 3,327 Canadian dollars. And that's converted to Jamaican dollars. I'm using Jamaican dollars, guys, because that's what I know. If you're not from Jamaica, I'm not biased. I just know the Jamaican currency. And I'm kind of in my talk answering questions that have already come into me, right? So 3,300 Canadian dollars is about 300,000 or 350,000 Jamaican dollars, right? So that's the amount that you would have to show in the bank for someone who is interested in moving to Canada through the Atlantic Immigration Program as an individual, right? The difference with this program for proof of funds is that you have to show money for family members, even if they are not coming to Canada with you. So like me, for example, I have my child. Say, for instance, I was going to come to Canada first and then bring her after. I still would have to show money for her, even if she's not coming. But the extra that I would have to show is like $1,000 extra, plus or minus, per family member. So if I have a spouse and a child that is not coming with me, I would have to show $2,000 extra for them, about $5,000 if there's 2 people not, even if they're not coming with me. That's the only difference. But still, it's still like significantly less. I'm not saying it's a little bit of money, but it's significantly less than express entry. And I think it's more achievable for most people. Even if it's like a loan, it's easier to get like a $5,000 loan than a $15,000 loan. And it's easier to pay back less money, right? So I say that to answer the question for somebody who I had spoken to recently about the program, that, proof of funds is a concern. Yes, if you can figure out some way to show 3,500 Canadian dollars, just show it in a bank account. You're not showing them actual cash, showing them assets, money in the bank, stuff like that, to be able to come through for this program, right? So that's proof of funds. So now that we know how it works, we're going to talk about the designated list of employers. So we spoke a little bit earlier about how an employer becomes designated, right? So now, when that employer is designated, which is an employer that is able to hire internationally through the Atlantic Immigration Program, there is a list that they're added to. And the list of the employers, so the name of the company, is available on the Canadian Immigration website, and it's available on each province's website. So each province has like an information page, and if you dig through it, you'll find the list. Or from the Canadian Citizenship and Immigration website, they'll kind of link you to each province's website. So the list will only tell you the name of the companies, right? The employers' names. It won't tell you, usually, it won't tell you if they're hiring, and it won't tell you what positions they're hiring for, which means that you can have a list of 5,000 employers. It doesn't mean they all have job positions. It just means that they're eligible to participate in the program. And it doesn't tell you what job positions they have, right? So, I mean, it just means that there's going to be a little bit of work, or quite a bit of work, that you're going to need to do in order to find a job, right? So now, where do you find jobs? Now, back in 2019, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, I partnered with a company that did the heavy lifting for you, finding the jobs and putting it in a database, saying like, okay, this employer, this is a job position, this is the contact information for the employer. So they did all of that for you. But after COVID, that company, they changed management or changed hands, and I discontinued the partnership. So here's how I would suggest going about finding a job in Atlantic Canada, right? Some provinces, actually, I found this out today, some provinces have job matching services, right? So you go onto their website, you fill out a form, And then they will work behind the scenes to kind of match you with an employer who is looking for somebody with your skill set. It's not, nothing is guaranteed. It doesn't mean that you'll definitely be contacted. You'll definitely find a job, but it's definitely one way to find jobs. Okay, so somebody just has a question on YouTube. My problem is I don't know where to start. Would the first step be to contact the company that you'd consider working with? So I'm getting to that. I'm definitely getting to that. So to start, some companies provide job match services. You go on their website, fill out a form, you kind of just join a pool, and you're over there kind of just waiting to hear back from them. So that's one like passive way of doing it, right? You just submit your information. It doesn't mean everything is guaranteed, so don't bank on just that, right? Newfoundland and Labrador and Nova Scotia are two provinces that their websites have these job matching services, right? And the links will be in the blog. I'll tell you about it after. There are also like, so on some of the websites, on some of the province websites, they will like say, oh, Nova Scotia, people in Nova Scotia looking for jobs, or employers usually post jobs on these websites, right? And they list out like about 7 websites, and they're linkable. So you just click them and you just go to the website to show where like there's like job banks of employers who are posting job positions, right? Now, job hunting, no matter what, like even me in Canada, I just changed jobs. Job hunting is a job. It's a job. Preparing for it, finding a job, going through all this process, it's a job. So no matter where you're looking for, whether it's in your country, internationally, it takes a lot of work and some patience. And I say that because it's easy to be discouraged, right? Especially in this job market where there's a lot of people applying. It's easy to, when you don't hear back, you feel discouraged, but it's not necessarily like personal. Don't take it personal, right? It's not about you. It's just like there's plenty of fish in the sea and you're trying to stand out, right? So the longer way of doing it. So this is to answer Quasi. Thank you so much, Ben. Quasi. Quasi's question, like, where do you start? Here's what I would suggest, right? If you're just kind of trying to figure out what. Do a little research on which province you are most interested in. Now, if you don't really care, right? If they're probably similar provinces, they're probably mostly similar. Just start in alphabetical order, right? So start with the first Atlantic province, right? Go to their website, find the list of designated employers, right? Now, some companies, their names are obvious in terms of what they do, right? So there's one that I saw in there. That's it. The name of the company is Any Day Plumbing and Renos. So that they do plumbing and renovations, right? So if you are a plumber, that employer is relevant to you. So the list can be extensive, but there's some places, some companies on there that might say daycare, they might say, school. You know what category you fall into based on your skill set or your educational background. If you're a housekeeper, you're going to look for things in hospitality. If you're a chef, you're going to look for restaurants or even hospitality, right? So look for companies that are relevant to you. Once you have that list, go to the individual websites of these companies and look for the careers page. Now, not all websites are going to have a careers page. And this is now, Quasi, where I would suggest have your resume ready, right? And a Canadianized resume, guys. And I can do another video on Canadianizing your resume, right? Because you want your resume to look like the resumes that they're used to seeing, to have the information that is relevant to them within the Canadian context, right? Have your resume ready. On everybody's website, every company's websites, 9 times out of 10, they have contact information. Send them an email. Send them an email saying, I noticed that you're on the list of designated employers for hiring through the Atlantic Immigration Program. I am interested in your company because you do this, and this is the skill set that I would have to offer to you. Please attach my resume. I mean, it can spruce it up a little bit more, and maybe that's like a whole separate video if I have to do. But, you have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose from just doing that, right? Will it be fruitful the first time? Not necessarily. But as you do it, you might find that you're getting 1 or 2 responses. If you do 100, I'm going to say 100, or if you did 10, right? Let's say you get 1 response, right? And I'm not saying that that's a success rate or anything like that. It's just, that's one way to go about it, right? You're just going to have to, it takes a lot of balls, I think, to kind of just put yourself out there, I know, but you have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose from just doing that. Now, for the companies that do post careers, there's definitely one company, I think it's 3D Property Management. I forget the province it was in. New Brunswick, I think. And this is just on the list of designated employers, right? They had a career page on their website, and they were hiring a property manager that had background, some Indian experience of the sort, right? There were 3 job positions that they had open in that on that company's website. So that's where I would suggest starting. Quasi is filling out the form to try and get job matched. There's no guarantee there, so that's just a passive way of doing it. Their active way is to go through the list, pick out the companies, go on their websites, send out emails. If they have career pages, apply to the positions. If they don't, just email them with your resume with a nice little thing saying, why you're interested, why you're emailing them, why they should be interested in you, and do that. Even if like you're not an international person and you live in Canada and you're looking for a job, you could be like applying, like so many stories of people applying to jobs in handfuls, like just sending out job applications and getting nothing back, because you're swimming in a sea where there's lots of you swimming in, right? There's other people applying, there's other people who are interested, there's a lot of noise that employers have to filter through to see your resume, right? So it's a process that you have to be patient for, you have to be persistent, and you have to keep the faith. So that's how I would suggest going about finding a job in Atlantic Canada, right? Quasi, if that was helpful, let me know. If you want me to talk a little bit more about that, just let me know also. So now I'm kind of moving on from how to find a job and kind of doing a quick comparison between the Atlantic Immigration Program and the Labor Market Impact Assessment, LMIA. So in the context of these 2 programs are comparable or similar in that they are employer driven, right? And then you have to have a job offer through one of these streams in order to migrate or move to Canada, right? The LMIA, or Labor Market Impact Assessment, is an individual employer saying, hey, Canada government, I'm trying to hire for this job position, but there's nobody in Canada that's qualified, or either they're not applying or they just don't meet the skill set that you're looking for. So therefore, I have to hire internationally. And as you can imagine, as an employer, and I don't even need to imagine, because I started this process when I just started my journey, because there was no express entry when I started, right? I started with LMIA. And the process that I am familiar with based on that attempt is that the employer has to post the job, post it on public websites to allow people in Canada to apply. When people in Canada apply, the employer has to go through all those candidates, and he has to put a reason beside every single candidate to say, this person didn't qualify because of this person didn't qualify because of that, this person didn't qualify. As you can imagine, that can be very tricky, right? So what I think, for anybody who is outside of Canada and interested in LMIA, I think that The Atlantic Immigration Program is the closest thing to an LMIA, but like 10 times easier because the labor market impact assessment process is already done, right? The main reason why the employers are on the list of designated employers is because they submitted a labor shortage in a certain shortage and the province has already approved that, right? So they don't have to go through the process of, proving to the government that we need to hire internationally. They've already done that. So now you just need to find a job under one of these employers, right? So anybody who is outside of Canada interested in LMIA, I don't know where you can go and find LMIA approved jobs or LMIA employers who are looking for people through LMIA. That's not an easy thing to find, but Atlantic Immigration Program, I think, is the closest thing that is easier than LMIA. So what are the pros and the cons of the programs? Like with anything in life, things have pros and cons, right? And they can be extensive, but I'm only just going to list a few of the ones that stand out to me. A pro of the Atlantic Immigration Program is that the proof of funds is significantly lower compared to like the Express Entry Program, right? Another pro is that you can use this pathway to get into Canada and you can move out of Atlantic Canada once you have permanent residency. When you're a permanent resident, your mobility rights are unlimited, right? So like when you move to Atlantic Canada, and we'll get into the cons of the program, you have to stay there until you're a permanent resident. You have to stay with the employer until you're a permanent resident. So, yeah. The Atlantic Immigration Program educational requirements and language requirements are lower. There's less requirements, right? So you don't have to have as much. You can have high school education and still get through as compared to the Express Entry Program, right? It's not quite the same. And then it's a relatively easier pathway to Canadian status than the Express Entry Program. So those are the pros or benefits of the Atlantic Immigration Program. Now, the downside or the cons are that the job search, as you've experienced, Kwasi, can be time consuming and discouraging. You don't know where to start. You're not getting any hits, what to do. So Kwasi responded, say, I am aware of the careers website. I guess my next step, as you said, would be to reach out to various schools or companies. I'm interested in teaching and assistant jobs. Yeah. So look on the list for schools. It'll say whatever institution or school or daycare or whatever. If you're an early childhood educator, start there, reach out to them, right? So then, the job search can be discouraging. It can be time consuming. So that's the one thing that is kind of like, okay. And you have to have the job before you can even, do anything else. And then another downside is that you have to remain in Atlantic Canada and you have to stay with the employer that your work permit is linked to until you are a permanent resident. So say, for instance, you go to an employer, you don't necessarily like the working conditions. Changing jobs is not a simple thing if you're on a closed work permit. A closed work permit means that you are tied to this employer. You cannot work for anybody else. I don't know if they'll give you an open work permit, maybe. But if you're tied to an employer, you're stuck there. If you're tied to the province, you're stuck there. I'm not going to use stuck. You must remain there. I don't want to use stuck. It sounds kind of negative. It's not a bad thing that you're in Atlantic Canada, but maybe you want to be somewhere else, right? So you have to stay there until you're a permanent resident. But I mean, that's a year, maybe 18 months, and you're a permanent resident. You can go anywhere. You can work for anybody. You can do anything in Atlantic Canada, in Canada, all of Canada. You can move to Ontario. You can move to Toronto. So those are the cons of the program itself. So now the pros and the cons of Atlantic Canada, right? Atlantic Canada is East Canada. So we kind of spoke about that. What's the benefit of going there? Well, for sure, let me tell you, the cost of living over there is definitely lower than popular cities like Toronto and Vancouver, right? The cost of housing, cars, car insurance, the things that eat out of your pocket every month are significantly lower than Toronto, for example. I think I had spoken to somebody who had said, oh, my rent is $600. I was like, oh, all right, that sounds nice. My rent is 3.5 times that. Yeah. So as a comparison. Now access, if you care for, scenery and scenic stuff, there's access to the ocean and fresh seafood in Atlantic Canada because it's by the ocean. Anything that you buy in Toronto that is seafood or whatever, it's not, unless it's in a tank, it's not fresh from the ocean, right? It's been frozen or whatever. So if you care for that kind of thing, or if you care for the ocean view, Lake Ontario kind of looks like an ocean. I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't look like a lake. So the population density over there is lower. So you have, there's less competition for jobs, supposedly, as compared to like Toronto. There's less congestion and less traffic within the city compared to a bigger city or place with a higher population density. So I think that's the if you're kind of like a suburban person or like less about the busy and the traffic on the 401. My camera is blurry. Then that's definitely a benefit of the program. Then there's settlement services. So settlement services are provided for free to come to the Atlantic provinces through the Atlantic Immigration Program, which I think is a benefit to kind of just coming here blindly, especially if you don't have family or friends here. I think settlement services can be a helpful service. Like, I haven't tried it myself, but to me, it sounds like it makes sense. And then the downside to Atlantic Canada is that I think it may not be very multicultural. I think Toronto is probably the most multicultural city. And, the further away from that you go, it becomes less diverse in terms of ethnic background or, finding a West Indian supermarket, little things like that, if that matters to you. But I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily, and it's not necessarily the end of the world or anything like that. And then they just got hit by a storm. So storms, it's storm prone. They just got I think a hurricane, storm prone. So that in a nutshell is the Atlantic Immigration Program. Yeah. How are we doing for time? I'm going to answer a question that came through somebody who RSVP'd. Not everybody asked a question. So I think I did answer the question that this person would have asked based on everything that I've said. But I'm going to read the question. I'm going to answer it directly. Are persons outside of Canada qualified to be part of the Atlantic Immigration Program? Yes. Foreign skilled worker. Remember, the definition of foreign is anywhere outside of Canada. I'm a teacher. Oh, is this you, Quasi? I'm a teacher for 5 years living in Jamaica with an associate's degree. If I'm qualified for the Atlantic Immigration Program, where would be the best place to start seeking jobs? Job fair events I've seen thus far are for international students and persons already in Canada, right? So I think we spoke about that. I think we covered that, that you are qualified because once you're outside of Canada, check. And you're a teacher, which means that you would fall under one of the NOC codes. I'm not sure which NOC the teacher falls in, but it might be A or B, one of the two. And seeking jobs, just go through the list. It's going to be a little bit, time consuming, a little bit tedious. Go through the list, find the employers that are school related to start, and reach out to them. Go on their website, see if they have any positions opening. It's going to be laborious. And I think that, I don't know if this would be helpful for you guys to do, a workshop. I don't even know that I have the time, honestly, but to do like a job search workshop for the Atlantic Immigration Program, so that we kind of do it together. Tell me if that's something that you're interested in. I think I've answered, yeah, that was a question. And then throughout the talk, I've answered another question. Somebody who's interested in, who is a housekeeper, who is interested in coming to Canada. Housekeeping does qualify as an Atlantic Immigration Program job under Code C or NOC Classification C. You do have to show that you have at least 3,300 Canadian dollars and find a job that, oh, is it still type C? Really? To find a job that, or find an employer that's hiring housekeepers. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the Atlantic Immigration Program. Again, if you're just joining, Gio was not able to join me today. He was hit by the storm, and I haven't actually been able to get through to him for a little while. I just heard back from him recently. He's okay, but he's been hit by the storm, so we don't get to hear from him today, but hopefully one day in the future we'll hear his story about Atlantic Canada. And I also put through a question out, about like going to Atlantic Canada to kind of experience it for you guys. I kind of feel like doing it. But it's like winter now, so I don't know. But it's actually something I'm seriously considering, going there for a month and going to each province for a month. So that is it for today. Unless you guys have any questions about the Atlantic Immigration Program, I'm Kristina. Let me know. And let me know if there is anything that you want me to cover in future content about this program. This is something that I covered extensively in 2019 because I was very interested in another program that was helpful for you guys to do it. Thank you, Wayne, for joining too. Thank you for being on here and being so kind with your comments. Thank you so much. Quasi, okay, I hope that was helpful. I missed a question here. I'm interested to know how the resume should look like and interested in Canadian companies. Okay, so I did do a Canadianize your resume video in the past. We can do another one. Demar from the Andersons. So Demar and I went live week 1 of this tour. He actually provides resume writing services. So you can actually go to him and have him help you to do your resume for you. His channel is The Andersons, or on Instagram, he's The Andersons Original, DIANDERSONS, The Andersons. Canadianizing resume. And Canadian companies. Yeah, I think the Atlantic Immigration Program is an amazing program for people who, don't have enough points for express entry or don't have enough money to do the express entry program. I think so. Hi. We are, I'm 58 minutes in. It felt quicker to me, but I'm 58 minutes in. The website for NOC, forgot. So now everything that I just spoke about is in a blog post on my website. So if you go to my website, as told by CanadianImmigrants.com/blog, or just go to as told by CanadianImmigrants.com and go to the blog page. It's the Atlantic Immigration Program blog. Everything that I just spoke about is outlined in that blog with links to everything, links to the NOC code, links to the, I don't even remember now, everything, where to find jobs, where to find the list of designated employers, proof of funds, all those links are in that blog post. So I'm going to put that blog post right here for you. Right here. So it's on YouTube, guys. Sorry, I can't just copy and paste it in Instagram. That's my blog. That's the blog post there. And in there, when you go to NOC classification, it's there. No problem, Lady Kim Henry. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. And yeah, I think that this is an interesting program. Like while I was doing the research for this, I was like, now I feel like going to Atlantic Canada just to check it out. I'm not trying to move, but I would like to go over there and see. Does age matter? Age is definitely a consideration for immigration programs because the whole point of immigration programs is for the Canadian labor market. So if you're closer to retirement, your chances are you're less interesting. Sorry. To them. Now, does it mean that you're too old? Not necessarily. I don't think so. Let's see if there's any age. I actually didn't look for if there's any age limitations. We've answered these questions before. And Paul thinks that the provincial nominee program, PNP, is more suitable for more mature people. But I think once you're under age of retirement, you have the qualifications. There was nowhere that I saw that there was a limitation for an Atlantic immigration program. I'm just going to look for it right now. Oh my God. Sorry, it took me a while to like, okay. Okay, so up until 50, it looks like the Atlantic immigration program might be, no, there's no limitation. I might have to do some more research. But the older you are, the chances your window gets smaller because if you're closer to retirement, you're not too old as long as you're not at retirement age. But yeah, me just saying it looks like it's 50. I was just, it's a quick search and there's nothing to like, I have no way to validate what they've said, right? So I'm not going to say it's 50. I just see that's there. I don't know that that's true. I don't think that there's an age limit necessarily, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, thank you. Thank you too. Thank you from Trinidad. I hope you will still be able to get the interview from your friend in Newfoundland. Yes, me too. Me too. I'm very interested in the first thing he said to me when I said, hey, how is it going over there? He was like, trash. Okay, somebody said the Atlantic program is up until age 55. So maybe. And that makes sense if retirement is 60 or 63, 62, 63, then yeah. Okay, so there's somebody on here. Monique. Is this Monique like from long time Monique? I know there was a Monique that was always like there. Hi, even if you're not. Hi, Monique. PEI is PNP is up to age 59. So there's some good information coming in on Instagram about age limitation. So 55 for Atlantic and then 59 for Prince Edward Island provincial nominee program. So we'll see. All right, guys, we're 2 minutes to when I had scheduled this to end for. So, and I'm not going to go over. I got to go get my kid. Hi, Monique. If that's you, right? Hi. I remember you. I don't think your name was spelled out like that before. And you had like a picture with a blue. Oh, I remember you. Hi. Thanks for joining. Thanks for keeping the faith and sticking around and waiting for me to come back. I'm here. I'm back. Yeah. This is it. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Thank you for watching and keeping the faith. And for my returning subscribers, thank you for sticking around. And if you're new, remember to subscribe, like this video, share it with anybody who might be interested in the Atlantic Immigration Program. And next week is week 5. So it's the finale of the as Ask a Canadian Immigrant live virtual tour. Next week, we have a panel. So it's myself, Paul, Demar from the Andersons, and Temu, who I had interviewed like years ago. And we are going to talk about, you are awesome too. Thank you. We're going to talk about, the topic is, should I move to Canada? Should you move to Canada? So we're going to help you answer that question. Should you move to Canada? And Okay, it's back. My alarm just went off. So should you move to Canada? And, why did we move to Canada? And then the panel is different people with different experience, different places in life where I left, I came back. Paul left, he's not back yet. Demar is just celebrating 3 years and he's super excited and saying that Alberta is the best province ever. And Temu is still in Canada, but kind of questioning why. So it's an amazing host of views and backgrounds and places and spaces in life. So definitely RSVP to next week's episode. RSVP link is in my bio on Instagram. It's under this video on YouTube when it's up. And be there next week, Sunday at 3:00 Toronto time. And that's a wrap. See you in the next video.